SpongeBob SquarePants needs no introduction. It is easily the most iconic cartoon of the past 20 years or so. SpongeBob is a cartoon character as recognizable as Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny. And really, this is a sort of flash in the pan type of moment for animation. It was a sort of laissez-faire pro-creativity style of the time. It wasn't the only series that came out during this creator-driven boom of cartoons in the late 90s to 2010s, but it was easily the biggest. Yet, what made SpongeBob immediately catch on with so many people was its unique sense of identity, but also the level of quality. I'm completely serious when I say that SpongeBob seasons 1 to 3 are some of the most consistently great episodes of animation made for TV. Hell, maybe even some of the best comedy TV ever made. I think anyone would understand if you said any episode from these seasons was your favorite. Though, at least online, when this question is asked, there's usually a few pretty typical answers. Not that I'm saying having these as your favorite episodes is a bad thing or anything, but these tend to be the first ones brought up. These episodes usually being Band Geeks, Chocolate with Nuts, and Krusty Krab Pizza. And these are all great episodes, but they're not my favorite. Top 10 easily, but not my number one. It's no surprise what my favorite SpongeBob episode is. That episode being Idiot Box. Now hold on, before you use those big meaty claws to bludgeon me in the comments, allow me to explain myself. So come along with me as I speak to you about my favorite and what I think is the greatest episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. Idiot Box. On this channel, before I go into the topic at hand, I usually speak about the production process and creative choices taken behind the scenes when making something. And I couldn't find too much on this specific episode, but I can tell you how the typical creation of a SpongeBob episode goes, since I've already researched that before, which I go into some detail on in my SpongeBob SquarePants movie review vid. You can check that out after this video if you're fiending for some more SpongeBob related videos. So, the most important and different production choice SpongeBob makes in comparison to many other Western animated series is that they actually do storyboarding first and then dialogue and scripting second. On paper, that doesn't sound too odd, but usually an episode of a show is made with dialogue first, and then they try to do the storyboard. However, SpongeBob focused first on getting pitches from the animators and then storyboarding it out. Essentially, they would tell the story visually first and then create the dialogue around whatever visuals were happening, which is what lent SpongeBob its much more kinetic and fast-paced style of storytelling, mixing in clever visual gags with witty dialogue. Plus, it also allowed for a lot more freedom on the animators' behalf. They didn't have to worry about a writer's room being too nitpicky with how they animated their scripts because, well, they were the writer's room. Though part of me wonders how they pitched this to the rest of the group. Most of the shots involve a stagnant cardboard box. Of course, you could assume what the rest of the production was like, making the dialogue, recording the lines, and so on. The three main writers of this episode were series mainstays. The first one I should mention is Paul Tibbitt, the man who, to anyone who knows their SpongeBob trivia, is a pretty important guy to the series. He was the man Steven Hillenburg handed production over to after the SpongeBob movie, and he's also written and worked on many iconic episodes in the series. Just to list a few of his many credits, he worked on The Secret Box, Welcome to the Chum Bucket, Frankendoodle, Scaredy Pants, Nature Pants, Nasty Patty, My Pretty Seahorse, and that's only a few that he worked on. He also was the showrunner from seasons 4 to 9. Walt Dorn is also one of the credited writers on this episode. He's also a long-running writer for SpongeBob, and the voice of Rumpelstiltskin in Shrek Forever After? Huh, the more you learn every day. Anyways, he's actually worked on a ton of projects after SpongeBob, such as story artist for Shrek 2, The Simpsons movie, and many other DreamWorks projects after his time on SpongeBob. But he was credited as a writer on many episodes in the early seasons of the series, some of which include Christmas Who, Procrastination, Club SpongeBob, and so much more. The last credited writer on this episode is Meriwether Williams. She's worked on many cartoons. She has credits on The Rugrats, The Angry Beavers, Adventure Time, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and a lot more. And of course, she worked on so many classic episodes of SpongeBob like Karate Choppers, Something Smells, Wormy, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 3, and you kinda get the picture. And yeah, that's all I really gotta say about the production of this episode, and the people who worked on it. Let's talk about the episode itself, huh? This episode is the classic SpongeBob and Patrick annoy Squidward type of episode. We've seen similar ones like this before, yet very few of them add in the layer where Squidward actually gets a bit envious of Patrick and SpongeBob. There's definitely a few, but I wouldn't say there's many. So I think most of us get the general structure of this episode. SpongeBob and Patrick get a large box, throw out the TV that comes with it, and use the box for all sorts of imagined scenarios. Obviously, when explained that way, it sounds incredibly boring, but trust me, with how comedic this episode actually is, it's hilarious. Of course, there's so many classic gags from this episode, such as the sawing off the arms bit, Robot Pirate Island, and the boxing gag, which is great. They really stretch for that joke, and I think it's funnier that they even work so hard for such a dumb gag. Though, to be fair, that is part of the joke, so, you know. Though I want to add here that the plot of this episode is very tight. It's simple and clear cut. Yet we get as many gags and little character moments we feasibly could get out of just a box. We really tease at the fact that Squidward just has zero idea what's going on. And honestly, I miss how innocent classic SpongeBob and Patrick felt. Like, they're not being annoyingly naive, they're just having fun with the box. It's not their fault Squidward is so tantalized by their imagination. They would try to give Squidward the room and try to imagine something with them. Of course, that goes horribly, and it's Squidward. He's not exactly a free spirit. Thus, when the ending gag of the episode is Squidward finally thinking he's somehow gotten the box to quote-unquote work, he has it bite him in the ass, and it turns out he was just getting picked up by a dump truck, because he was trying to get something out of imagination. Yet, he also wouldn't give it a chance. This highlights the major difference in perspective and character between SpongeBob and Squidward. Initially, Squidward just saw SpongeBob as being a moron for finding his own joy. But SpongeBob didn't care. He was just fine with his powerful imagination because he didn't need to get anything out of it. It's just something he never lost. I've always liked to interpret Squidward as a person that over the years became a curmudgeon because he lost that childlike sense of wonder, but also desperately wants it back. I mean, why do you think he still does painting and music, yet it always comes out so terrible? He tries so hard to make traditionally accepted art, but never goes anywhere. It lacks a sort of genuineness to it all. He seeks creativity and imagination to get some kind of gain, whereas SpongeBob is just naturally curious and whimsical. He still has this element of care in his life. Thus, whenever he attempts art, or in this episode, imagination, it's beautiful. And that to Squidward is what he wants, yet he can't have it. Because while deep down he does want it, his snobbish side comes out and looks down on them. He can't just help but call it stupid, moronic, maybe even idiotic. Look, maybe I am reaching or overthinking it here, but I really think this episode taps into the creative spirit and essence of SpongeBob. SpongeBob the series, but also the character. The reason why the series was such a big hit to begin with is because it was a series made with no major intents to gain at all. It was just a goofy idea Hillenburg had and thought it'd be a fun show to make. If I'm overstepping here, let me know. But I feel like SpongeBob, the series, was Hillenburg and his own crew's imagination box. Maybe to the seemingly intelligent adults, SpongeBob was stupid, annoying, and trite. But to all of us who actually gave it the time of day, it was so much more. It's this idea of unrestrained, unfiltered imagination which is represented through SpongeBob. A sense of childlike curiosity and wonder for the world that still happens to be an adult. And seeing that as a child as well as an adult, it's great to see that. With something as simple as a cardboard box, the crew working on SpongeBob really said a lot about imagination. How it is one of the greatest joys, and really one of the superpowers we have, and thus it's a real shame when we do lose it. So thanks SpongeBob for showing me as a child, and as an adult, the power of imagination. And yeah, that's all I really got to talk about here. Yeah, it's only one episode of SpongeBob, so there isn't really much to talk about outside of what I feel on it, but I genuinely really like this episode. Sure, it's not the ones you traditionally pick, and maybe I am a bit overreaching here, but I'd rather be sappy and honest than lying and try to overanalyze something in a way I didn't feel like it was, you know? So, yeah, with all that being said, what'd you think? Did you like it? Did you not? I hope you did like it, but hey, talk about it in the comments below. And with all that being said, I'll see you next time.